This week's parsha is the most important parsha in the entire Torah. You may ask, why is this week's parsha the most important in the entire Torah? Well, let me tell you. Parsha Pinchas picks up right where last week left off. We have the conclusion of the story of Pinchas, ending with him receiving the covenant of peace. We have another census and the directive to divide the land proportionally based on the size of every tribe. We have the daughters of Zelophehad challenging Moshe to ensure the rights of daughters to inherit land. We have Joshua being appointed as Moshe's successor, and we have the offerings to be brought at every holiday. But none of that is why this is the most important parsha in the Torah. The reason this is the most important parsha is because it teaches us two important lessons about leadership. The last few lines of last week's parsha and the first few lines of this week's parsha are directly connected. It's a continuation of the same story. Last week we read about the zealousness of Pinchas when he graphically killed two people for engaging in public immoral behavior. This week we read how Pinchas' extreme behavior was rewarded with the covenant of peace. I wanted to share an idea I learned from Rabbi Philip Moskowitz. He posed the question, if the immoral behavior that so enraged Pinchas was carried out in full view of Moshe and the whole Israelite community, why did Pinchas act when no one else did? What made Pinchas a leader? There's a great story about Golda Meir. Okay, there's lots of great stories about her, but this is one I hadn't heard before. She was asked about her leadership philosophy and what made her such a natural leader. Her response was, I don't know about leadership, but I do know that one time I was at the theater and a group of us got on the elevator. Everyone was just standing there, so I reached out and pressed the button. What a great lesson in leadership. Leadership is about pressing the button. Pinchas pressed the button. But where did Pinchas learn that particular behavior? The Talmud in Sanhedrin tells us that Pinchas saw. What did he see? He saw what was happening and he remembered the halakha, that if someone is doing something terrible, you're allowed to take extreme action. Where did he learn that particular halakha? According to the Talmud, Pinchas said, Moshe, you taught me this halakha when you came down from Mount Sinai. Okay, but one problem. I don't remember reading in the Torah that when Moshe was coming down from Mount Sinai, he stopped along the way and taught Pinchas this particular law. So what does the Talmud mean that Moshe taught this to Pinchas? Where did Moshe do that? And the answer, according to the Vilna Gaon, is that Moshe taught this to Pinchas at the breaking of the tablets of the Ten Commandments. Sure, Moshe never taught this law directly, but when we act, people see. When Moshe came down from Sinai and saw the people acting in a horribly immoral way and doing so proudly and publicly, what did Moshe do? He acted zealously. He acted in an extreme way. He broke the tablets that were given to him by Hashem. Hashem didn't tell him to break the tablets. He didn't have time to consult anyone. He saw extreme behavior and took extreme action. And in doing that, he modeled that behavior for Pinchas. Pinchas was watching. He learned the lesson loud and clear. And 40 years later, when Pinchas was in a similar situation, he remembered how his teacher acted at Sinai and used that to guide his behavior. So back to our question. Why did Pinchas act when no one else did? Well, Pinchas was a leader. He pressed the button. But Moshe was also a leader, the greatest leader ever. Why didn't Moshe act? And therein lies the ultimate lesson of leadership. Good leaders create followers, great leaders create leaders, and the hardest part of creating leaders is giving them room to lead. Moshe saw what was happening and wanted to press the button, but he held himself back, saying, let's see if Pinchas steps up. Let's see if Pinchas is ready to be a leader. And when he saw Pinchas act, and when he saw Hashem reward him with the covenant of peace, he knew he succeeded in creating a leader. And not just a leader in Pinchas, but a new generation of leaders. Eleazar, Pinchas, Joshua. The next generation of leaders was ready to take over. That's why later in this parsha, Moshe asks Hashem to appoint his successor. Moshe knew he had succeeded in creating the next set of leaders, and he knew he needed to do the hardest thing any leader has to do, step aside and let someone else lead. There are 13 more parashot in the Torah. Sure, Moshe is going to do a lot more teaching and make some amazing speeches, but all of the rest of the Torah takes place over the span of 30 to 40 days. This is really the end of our story. Moshe led the nation out of Egypt to Mount Sinai through the wilderness and now names his successor who will lead them into the promised land. Leaders, even the greatest leaders, don't always get to finish the job, but they do set the stage for continued success after they step aside. That is one reason why this is the most important parsha in the entire Torah. But the other reason is that the most important piece of Torah is whatever piece of Torah you have in front of you right now. Shabbat Shalom and Am Yisrael Chai.